The worst part about being gaslit is that you're the one holding the match. You're the one who lights the flame, touches it to the frayed end of your own sanity and watches it burn, all because someone you love told you the fire wasn't real. My name is Martina Daniels. I'm 34, and for the last 6 months my world has been slowly filling with smoke. It started subtly, the way a leak begins. A single drop you dismiss as condensation. My husband Jonas, who's 36 and could charm a confession out of a statue, started having more late nights at the office. Then his phone, which used to lie face up on the coffee table, was suddenly always face down, or in his pocket. One Tuesday I picked it up to Google a recipe while my own phone was charging. His thumbprint didn't work. He'd changed the passcode. "Oh, new work security protocol," he said breezily when I asked, not looking up from his laptop. "They're making us all update everything. It's a pain." He smiled, that warm, reassuring smile that had always made me feel safe. I felt a pang of guilt for even questioning it. But the drops kept falling, whispered phone calls he'd take on the patio, the glass door sliding shut behind him. The scent of a perfume on his jacket that wasn't mine, faint, floral, and cloying. When I mentioned it, he laughed. "Must have been someone from the elevator at work, honey. You know how those things are." I knew I sounded crazy. I could hear it in my own voice. So I went to the people I trusted most. My family. I called my younger sister, Rosalie, first. At 31, she's always been the pragmatic one, the keeper of our family's perfectly curated image. "Martina, you need to breathe," she said over the phone, her voice laced with that familiar patient tone she used when I was being dramatic. "Jonas adores you. You've been so stressed with work lately, you're probably not sleeping enough, you're just overthinking things." I hung up feeling foolish, but the anxiety wouldn't go away. A week later, I tried my mother, Lucille. She's 58 and believes emotions are a private, slightly embarrassing hobby, like collecting stamps. We were having our weekly lunch when I brought it up. Her fork clinked against her plate. "For heaven's sake, Martina. A wife's job is to be a comfort to her husband, not an interrogator. You're going to push him away with this paranoia. What will people think if they hear you accusing him of things?" Her words landed like stones. She was right. I was being paranoid. I was letting stress get to me. I was the problem. My self-esteem, already shaky, began to crumble into dust. That night I decided to fix it. I waited for Jonas to get home, my stomach churning with shame. He walked in looking tired, and I met him at the door. "I'm so sorry," I said, my voice thick. "I've been awful lately, accusatory and stressed out. You were right, and so were my mom and Rosalie. It's just me. I'm going to be better." He pulled me into a hug, his chin resting on the top of my head. He smelled like fresh air and his familiar cologne. "Hey," he murmured into my hair. "It's okay. We're a team. We'll get through it. I love you." I melted into his arms, flooded with relief. He loved me. I was just being crazy. We stood there for a long moment, and I felt the knot in my chest finally loosen. We went to bed early, and I fell asleep curled against his back, feeling safer than I had in months. I woke up sometime after midnight. The room was dark, silent except for the soft sound of Jonas's breathing. I turned over ready to drift back to sleep when a faint blue light caught my eye. It was coming from his side of the bed. He was lying on his back, holding a phone I didn't recognize. A slim black case, not his usual silver one. He was texting under the covers, his thumb moving quickly. My heart stopped. Before I could process what I was seeing, a notification banner flashed at the top of the screen. I only saw it for a second, but it was burned into my memory. A name, Evelyn. A message. "Can't wait to have you all to myself again tomorrow." and a little kissy face emoji. Jonas's head snapped toward me. He must have felt my body go rigid. His eyes widened in the dim light, and he slammed the phone shut, shoving it deep under his pillow with a panicked, clumsy movement. "What was that?" I whispered, my voice barely a thread. He propped himself up on an elbow, his face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Nothing, honey, just a work phone. An urgent email came through. Go back to sleep." He leaned over to kiss my forehead, but I flinched. The smoke was no longer just in the air. It was in my lungs, choking me. And for the first time I realized I wasn't the one holding the match. He was. And he'd been setting my world on fire for a very, very long time. I didn't sleep. I lay perfectly still, my back to him, my eyes wide open in the dark. I listened to his breathing deepen, waiting for the telltale rhythm of true sleep. He thought he'd soothed the crazy wife again. He thought I'd believed him. The condescension in his voice, the gentle pat on my head, it all felt like a lie now, coated in a thin, sticky layer of poison. The next morning was a masterclass in theatre. I made him coffee, just the way he likes it. I asked about his day, feigning interest in a meeting I now suspected was a lie. He kissed me goodbye at the door, his hand lingering on my waist. "Have a good day, honey. Try not to worry so much." I smiled, a brittle thing that felt like it might crack my face. "You too." The moment the door clicked shut, the smile vanished. I gave him 15 minutes, enough time to be clear of the neighbourhood. Then I went to work. His closet was the first stop. It was meticulously organised, a sea of grey suits and pressed shirts. Where do you hide a secret in a place with no clutter? I started with the obvious: shoeboxes, coat pockets, the top shelf. Nothing. I was starting to feel that familiar creeping doubt. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I was losing my mind. Then I remembered the old gym bag shoved in the back corner, a relic from a fitness kick that lasted 2 weeks 5 years ago. I pulled it out. It was empty except for a single, balled-up grey sock. It felt heavy. Too heavy. My fingers trembled as I unrolled it. There it was, the slim black phone. My breath hitched. It was real. I wasn't crazy. I took it to the kitchen table and pressed the power button. The screen lit up, demanding a passcode. My mind raced. What would it be? I tried his birthday. Nothing. Our anniversary. Nothing. I was about to give up when I remembered the name from the notification. Evelyn. I typed it out. Evelyn. The phone remained locked. Of course it wouldn't be that simple. I stared at the screen, my mind blank with panic, then tried drawing a simple pattern, a lazy L shape. It clicked open. My blood ran cold. He hadn't even tried to be clever. The message threads were right there, hundreds of them. Texts with Evelyn filled with a sickeningly sweet intimacy. Pictures I never wanted to see. Plans for weekends when he was supposedly on business trips. He'd been seeing her for over a year. She was a yoga teacher I'd once recommended he see for stress. The irony was a physical blow, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the group chat, the participants, Jonas, Rosalie, Lucille. The group name, Martina Management. I scrolled, my thumb moving mechanically as my world disintegrated. Rosalie, she called me again, said you smelled like perfume. I told her she was just tired. You need to be more careful, Jay. Jonas, I know, I thought I had it covered. She's getting so paranoid lately. Lucille, it's a phase. Just keep telling her you love her. A little reassurance goes a long way in calming hysterics. Don't let her ruin this for you. Jonas, she almost caught me with the other phone last night. Had to do some fast talking. Rosalie, LOL, my sister, the detective. Just tell her it's for work. She'll believe anything if you say it nicely enough. She always does. They were laughing at me, coaching him. My own mother and sister were active, willing participants in my humiliation. They weren't just enabling him, they were scripting him. Every dismissal, every piece of concerned advice, every time they'd made me feel small and unhinged. It was all a calculated performance. I didn't cry. The pain was too deep for tears. It was a hollow, silent agony that settled in my bones. The woman who had woken up this morning, the one who apologized and tried to be better, was gone. She died right there at the kitchen table, phone in hand. In her place, something else was taking root. Something cold and sharp and clear. This wasn't sadness. It was resolve. I took screenshots of everything, the texts, the call logs, the pictures. I emailed them to a new anonymous account I created on the spot. Then I called my work friend Penny. She's a data analyst, sharp as a tack, and the only person I knew who wouldn't feed me platitudes. "Penny," I said, my voice eerily calm, "I need your help with something. It's digital." "Sure," she said, her voice warm. "What's up?" "I'll tell you later, but first, a quick question. If I wanted to make sure digital files were completely secure and untraceable, how would I do it?" There was a pause. "Okay, that's not a normal Tuesday question. Are you in trouble?" "Not yet," I said. After I hung up, I sat there for another minute, the black phone feeling heavy in my hand. I opened the message thread with Rosalie. Her last text to Jonas was from that morning. "Is the coast clear? Did she buy it?" My fingers flew across the screen. I typed a reply, pretending to be him. "Yeah, she's fine. Totally clueless." As usual, I hit send. A few seconds later, her reply popped up. "Perfect. See you both at Mum's for dinner Sunday. Don't forget to bring the good wine. We deserve it." A single humorless laugh escaped my lips. They had made it so easy. They had taught me exactly how to lie. And I was about to become a very, very good student. The first thing I did was put the phone back. I wiped it clean of my fingerprints, rolled it back up in the grey sock, and tucked it into the old gym bag, shoving it into the deepest, darkest corner of the closet. A crime scene returned to its original state. Then I went about my day, a ghost in my own home. The performance began that Sunday at my mother's house. The air was thick with the smell of roasted chicken and smug satisfaction. Jonas put his arm around me as we walked in, a public display of the loving, patient husband. Rosalie kissed my cheek, her eyes scanning my face for any lingering signs of a meltdown. "You're looking better," she said a little too brightly. I gave her a fragile smile. "I feel better. You guys were right." Over dinner, I laid it on thick. I apologized to all of them. I told them I'd been overwhelmed, that I'd let my anxiety get the best of me, and that I was so grateful for their patience. "I've actually started seeing a therapist," I lied, looking directly at Jonas. "She's helping me work through some of my trust issues. It's been enlightening." Jonas beamed, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm so proud of you, honey. Whatever you need." Lucille nodded in stern approval. "Well, it's about time you took responsibility for your emotional state, Martina. A stable mind is the cornerstone of a stable home." They bought every word. They drank their expensive wine, celebrating their successful Martina management, while I ate my chicken and planned their demise. The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. Outwardly, I was the perfect healing wife. I was attentive, affectionate, and apologetic. Inwardly, I was a detective, an archivist of my own betrayal. Penny helped me set up a cloud-based storage drive, triple encrypted. We named the main folder Recipes. Inside, subfolders took shape. Bank statements, phone records, audio files. I started with the money. It was shockingly easy. I had access to our joint accounts, and from there I found a credit card in Jonas's name I'd never seen before. The statements told a story of hotel rooms on nights he was supposedly working late, expensive dinners for two at restaurants we never went to, and a recurring charge for a spa package at a boutique downtown. I looked up the spa. It was attached to a yoga studio, Evelyn's yoga studio. Next came the audio. I downloaded a voice recording app on my phone that could activate discreetly. I'd leave it running on the kitchen counter when I went to run errands. I captured snippets of his phone calls, the hushed, sweet tone he used with her, so different from the patronising warmth he reserved for me. "No, she has no idea," I heard him murmur one afternoon. "She's been better lately, back to her old self." It's actually a relief. I saved the file under casseroles. The hardest part was seeing her. I knew I had to do it, to see the woman who was a co-author of my pain. I engineered a chance encounter. I knew from the credit card statements that she liked a small coffee shop near her studio. I went there one morning and sat with a book. Sure enough, she walked in, glowing in her yoga pants and perfect ponytail. She ordered a green tea. I stood up as if to leave, timing it so we'd reach the door at the same time. "Evelyn, hi, it's Martina, Jonas's wife. I don't know if you remember me." Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second before a professional calm settled over her features. "Of course, Martina, so good to see you." "I just wanted to thank you," I said, my voice dripping with sincerity. "Jonas was so stressed out for a while, and ever since he started your sessions, he's been like a new man. Whatever you're doing, it's working wonders." She looked flustered, a faint blush creeping up her neck. "Oh, well, I just guide the practice. He does all the work." "You're too modest," I said with a wide smile. "We should all get dinner sometime." I walked away, leaving her standing there with a confused look on her face. She didn't suspect a thing. She just thought I was the clueless, grateful wife. It was exactly what I wanted. That night, Jonas came home late again. He found me on the sofa, reading. He sat beside me and pulled me into a hug, nuzzling my neck. I didn't flinch. I leaned into him, letting him hold me. "I'm so glad you're feeling better," he whispered. I pulled back just enough to look him in the eyes, my expression soft and loving. "Thank you for being so patient with me." He smiled, that same charming, dishonest smile. I smiled back. In the pocket of my jeans, my phone was warm. On the screen was a gallery of screenshots I'd taken that afternoon from his second phone, a new batch of texts between him and Evelyn, planning their next session. He was holding a woman who was cataloguing his lies, and he was so arrogant, so sure of his own cleverness that he couldn't feel the chill. The perfect weapon is never a weapon at all. It's a gift, a gesture of love so grand and public that no one would ever suspect the poison hidden inside. My perfect weapon arrived in the form of a save-the-date email from my mother, celebrating 40 years of Lucille and Richard Daniels. My father, Richard, was a largely absent figure in our lives, a quiet man who preferred his study to family dinners, but Lucille insisted on marking every milestone with the pomp and circumstance of a royal wedding. This year, for their 40th, she wanted a proper party, not at her house, but somewhere elegant, a catered affair. An idea, cold and brilliant, bloomed in my mind. This was it, the stage. I waited a few days before approaching them, letting the idea of party planning stress build. Then, over another Sunday dinner, I made my move. "Mum, I've been thinking about the anniversary party," I said, passing the mashed potatoes. "I know how much it means to you, and I'd love to take care of it. All of it." 3 pairs of eyes stared at me. Jonas looked surprised, Rosalie looked suspicious, and Lucille looked intrigued. What do you mean, all of it? My mother asked, her fork hovering mid-air. I mean, I'll find the venue, handle the caterer, the invitations, everything. My treat, I said, forcing a warm, daughterly smile. Think of it as my way of saying thank you. For everything. For being so patient with me these last few months. The mood at the table shifted. Rosalie's suspicion melted into condescending approval. Wow, Martina, that's a big undertaking. Are you sure you're up for it? I've never felt more clear-headed, I said, meeting her gaze. Jonas, ever the opportunist, saw an angle. That's a fantastic idea, honey. In fact, I've been meaning to find a way to thank Tyrell Ramirez and some of my other associates for a big deal we just closed. A classy family party would be the perfect setting to show my appreciation. We could invite them. He was suggesting using my parents' anniversary party to network. The audacity of it was breathtaking. It was perfect. Of course, I said sweetly. The more the merrier. Lucille, won over by the promise of a free party she could still take credit for, clapped her hands together. It's settled then. Oh, Martina, this is wonderful. It shows you're really getting back to your old self. I spent the next month meticulously planning their downfall under the guise of party preparation. I booked a beautiful private dining room at a high-end restaurant with a state-of-the-art audio-visual system. I paid the deposit with my own savings, a secret account Jonas didn't know about. I designed the invitations, chose the menu, and tasted the wine. My main project, however, was the tribute slideshow. I want to make a special video for them, I announced to the family. A walk down memory lane. I'll need old photos, home videos, all of it. They handed over boxes of memories without a second thought. And I, the devoted daughter and wife, took on the role of family historian. One evening I had Penny over. My laptop was open on the dining table, a timeline of smiling family photos laid out in a video editing program. This is the public version, I told her, clicking through pictures of birthdays and holidays. The real one is here. I opened a different project file. The timeline was darker, interspersed with screenshots of texts, snippets of audio waveforms, and scanned images of bank statements. Penny leaned forward, her expression grim. Martina, this is scorched earth. It's what they deserve, I said, my voice flat. She helped me edit. She showed me how to embed the audio files so they'd be clear and how to time the reveal of the text messages for maximum impact. We worked for hours, fueled by coffee and a cold, shared sense of justice. She was the only person who had seen the evidence, the only one who knew the truth. With a week to go, everything was in place. The RSVPs were in. Jonas's business partners were coming. Evelyn had even sent a polite regret, which was a small mercy. I felt a strange sense of calm, the quiet that comes when you've packed for a long journey and are just waiting for the train. That night I came home to an envelope on the floor, slipped under the front door. It was plain white, no stamp, no return address. My name was typed on the front. My heart hammered against my ribs. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a short typed message. Be careful. Family doesn't forgive this kind of betrayal. I stared at the words, a chill spreading through me. My plan was a secret. Only Penny knew. Who else could have sent this? It wasn't a threat. It felt like a warning. Someone was watching. Someone knew. And for the first time since I'd found the phone, I felt a flicker of fear. My carefully constructed performance had a crack in it, and I had no idea who was holding the hammer. The anonymous note sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days, a white rectangle of accusation. My first thought was Samara. My aunt, Lucille's 60-year-old sister, had always been an observer. At family gatherings she'd sit quietly, her eyes missing nothing. She possessed a stillness my mother and sister lacked. a quality I'd always mistaken for disinterest, but now wondered if it was wisdom. Had she seen the cracks in my marriage long before I had? I decided to test the theory. I called her under the pretense of asking about a family recipe for the party's dessert menu. We chatted for a few minutes about cakes and caterers before I steered the conversation. "It's been a lot, planning this whole thing," I said, injecting a note of weariness into my voice. "But I'm glad to do it. After the rough patch Jonas and I had, it feels good to focus on something positive for the family." There was a pause on her end. "Family can be a difficult thing, Martina," she said, her voice even. "Sometimes the people who are supposed to hold you up are the ones who push you down." It was cryptic, but not a confession. It was the kind of general wisdom an older relative might offer. It wasn't her. The real source of the note revealed himself a few days later. My cousin, Jesse Franklin, who was 35, and Samara's son, called me. He was usually a peripheral character in my life, someone I saw only at holidays. He wore his judgment like a well-tailored suit, and I'd always found him a bit standoffish. "Hey, Martina, got a minute?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. "Jesse, is everything okay?" "Yeah, I wanted to talk to you before the party, privately." We met for coffee the next day. He looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat and avoiding my eyes. "Did you get my note?" he asked finally. I just stared at him. "That was you." "Why?" He finally looked at me, and the judgment I'd always seen in his expression was replaced by something that looked a lot like guilt. "Because I saw something a couple of years ago. I was at that yoga place downtown picking up a gift certificate for my wife. I saw Jonas in the parking lot. He was with a woman, the instructor. He kissed her, Martina, like really kissed her." My coffee cup felt heavy in my hands. "Evelyn," he nodded. "I confronted him. He told me it was a mistake, a one-time thing, that he was going to end it. He begged me not to tell you, said it would destroy you, so I went to your mum instead. I thought she should know." "And what did Lucille say?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "She told me to stay out of it," Jesse mumbled, looking down at his hands. "She said you were fragile and that Jonas was a good man who'd made a silly error. She said telling you would do more harm than good, and that it was my duty to the family to keep my mouth shut." He'd been carrying this for 2 years. My mother had known for 2 years. The betrayal wasn't a recent development. It was a long-standing conspiracy. "Thank you for telling me, Jesse," I said, my voice betraying no emotion. "You did the right thing. Eventually." I added his story to the file. It was another layer, another brick in the wall of their deceit. But his confession led me down a new path. Lucille's insistence on protecting Jonas felt disproportionate. It wasn't just about appearances. It felt financial. That night I delved into a part of our lives I rarely thought about, the family inheritance. My grandparents had left a modest trust fund for my sister and me, managed by my parents until we turned 40. It wasn't a fortune, but it was significant. I had never bothered to look at the statements, trusting my mother implicitly. It took some digging in my father's old desk, but I found the paperwork. The account was with a small local investment firm. I called them the next morning, pretending to be my mother's assistant, and requested the last 5 years of statements for tax purposes. They arrived in my inbox an hour later. The numbers were wrong. There were withdrawals, large ones labelled as capital investments, that I knew nothing about. Tens of thousands of dollars moved out of the trust and into a holding company I'd never heard of. I googled the company name. The registered agent was Jonas Hughes. He hadn't just cheated on me. He had been systematically stealing from my family, from me and Rosalie, with my mother's blessing. The business travel, the expensive gifts for Evelyn, the hotel rooms, it wasn't just his money, it was mine. The last piece of the puzzle clicked into place by accident. I was at the mall picking up a dress for the party when I heard familiar voices, Rosalie and Evelyn. They were sitting at a cafe, heads close together, laughing. I ducked behind a large potted plant, my phone already in my hand, the recording app open. "And then she told me she was in therapy," Rosalie was saying, her voice dripping with mirth. "Like she's finally self-aware enough to realise she's the problem. It's almost a relief. Jonas can finally breathe. He does seem more relaxed," Evelyn said, her voice smooth as silk. "He said she's been so much easier to be around lately." "She's trying to make up for her little breakdown," Rosalie said with a dismissive wave of her hand. "It's pathetic, but at least it's quiet." I stood there, hidden by fake leaves, listening to my sister and my husband's mistress dissect my sanity over lattes. The anger I felt was so pure, so cold, it burned away any last shred of doubt or hesitation. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. This was about the complete and utter demolition of my life by the people who claimed to love me. They hadn't just betrayed me, they had erased me, and I was about to return the favour. The night before the party, I invited Penny over. The final version of the slideshow was loaded on my laptop. The house was quiet, a silent stage waiting for its final act. I poured us both a glass of wine. "I need to show you everything," I said, my voice steady. "The financial records, the recording of Rosalie and Evelyn, Jessie's story. You need to know the full scope before tomorrow." We sat at the dining room table, the same table where Jonas and I had shared hundreds of meals. I walked her through it all, the embezzlement from the trust fund, the years-long cover-up my mother orchestrated, my sister's gleeful complicity. I played her the audio I'd recorded at the mall. Rosalie's laughter echoed in the silent room, tinny and cruel. Penny listened without interrupting, her expression growing harder with each new piece of evidence. When I was finished, she just shook her head slowly. "This is so much worse than an affair," she whispered. "Martina, what they did to you. It's monstrous." She looked at the laptop, then back at me, her eyes full of concern. "Are you sure about this? Once you press play, there's no going back. You'll burn every bridge you have." "They're already ash," I said, taking a sip of my wine. "They just don't know it yet. They burned the bridges, Penny. I'm just turning on the floodlights so everyone can see the wreckage." She nodded, a grim understanding on her face. "Okay, then let's make sure it's perfect." We spent the next hour finalising the video. We layered in the audio of Rosalie and Evelyn over smiling photos of the two sisters. We timed the reveal of the bank transfers to coincide with pictures of Jonas and me on vacation, trips paid for with my own stolen inheritance. I recorded my voiceover, a calm, chilling narration that tied all the pieces together. It wasn't the voice of a victim. It was the voice of a narrator closing the final chapter of a very dark story. When we were done, Penny locked the presentation file with a password only she and I knew. "Just in case he tries to rush the stage and shut it down," she said. It was a practical, terrifying thought. After she left, I walked through the house, a stranger in my own life. Every photo on the wall felt like a prop from a play I hadn't realised I was in. The wedding portrait in the hallway, the two of us smiling, felt like a cruel joke. I was in the bathroom staring at my own reflection when Jonas came home. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder and meeting my eyes in the mirror. "There you are," he said, his voice a low murmur. "You seem different lately. Got your spark back." The irony was so thick I could taste it. It tasted like bile. For a split second I almost faltered. The man in the reflection was the man I had loved, the man I had built a life with. A wave of grief for the life I thought I had washed over me. What if I just deleted the file? What if I just let it all go and pretended I didn't know? But then I saw it in his eyes, the same condescending warmth, the same self-satisfied glint of a man who believed he had successfully managed his wife's little emotional crisis. He wasn't seeing me. He was seeing a problem that had been solved. I turned in his arms to face him, forcing a smile. I just feel clear, ready for a fresh start. He leaned in to kiss me, a long, slow kiss that felt like a lie. I kissed him back, my mind a block of ice. It was the last time. Later that night, long after he was asleep, I went back to the bathroom. I stared at my reflection, at the woman they had tried to break. They had underestimated her. They thought she was fragile, emotional, easy to manipulate. They had never considered that a person pushed to the brink doesn't always shatter. Sometimes they sharpen. I leaned closer to the mirror, my breath fogging the glass. I practiced the words I would say, the final lines of my script. I was never crazy, I whispered to the woman in the mirror. Her eyes, clear and cold, stared back at me. But you're all about to be. The private dining room was exactly as I'd pictured it. Elegant, understated, and filled with liars. The low hum of conversation mixed with the clinking of wine glasses. My mother, Lucille, was in her element, holding court near the head of the table, while my father stood beside her, a silent, smiling accessory. Rosalie flitted between guests, her laughter bright and artificial. Jonas was working the room, shaking hands with his business associate Tyrell Ramirez and the other partners he'd invited. He caught my eye from across the room and gave me a proud, beaming smile, the loving husband so pleased with his competent, now stable wife. I smiled back, a perfect, placid mask. Penny, seated at a table near the back, gave me a subtle, steadying nod. Dinner was a blur of polite conversation and bland food. I ate little, my stomach a tight knot of anticipation. Toasts were made. My father gave a short, mumbled speech. Rosalie spoke eloquently about the perfection of our family and the example our parents had set. It was all a beautiful, hollow performance. Finally, it was my turn. And now Martina has prepared a special tribute for our happy couple, Rosalie announced, gesturing to me. I walked to the front of the room, my laptop in hand. I connected it to the projector, my movements calm and deliberate. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room. 40 years is an incredible milestone, I began, my voice clear and strong. It's a testament to love, but also to loyalty, to the secrets we keep to protect the ones we love. So tonight, I wanted to create something that honors not just the memories we display, but the truths we hide. I pressed play. The video started innocently enough. Old photos of my parents' wedding, pictures of Rosalie and me as children, soft instrumental music played in the background. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. Jonas put his arm around my chair, squeezing my shoulder. Then the music faded. A screenshot of a text message filled the screen. It was from the Martina management group chat. Rosalie, she's getting so paranoid lately. A gasp rippled through the room. Rosalie's face went white. Before anyone could react, the next slide appeared. A bank statement showing a $20,000 transfer from the family trust to Jonas's holding company. My recorded voice filled the silence. It started with small lies. The slideshow became a relentless montage of betrayal. Text messages between Jonah and Evelyn, their words of love and longing plastered on the giant screen for everyone to see. Audio clips of Jonas on the phone, telling her he loved her. The recording of Rosalie and Evelyn in the mall, their laughter echoing through the stunned room as they called me pathetic. Jonas shot to his feet. "Martina, what the hell is this? Stop it!" He lunged for the laptop, but I was ready. I snapped the lid shut. "It's password protected, Jonas." The show continued. I narrated the story of Jesse's discovery, his words now typed out on the screen. She told me to stay out of it, to protect the family. My mother stared at the screen, her face a frozen mask of horror. This wasn't in her script. She was losing control of the narrative. Tyrell Ramirez and the other business partners were staring at Jonas, their faces a mixture of shock and disgust. This wasn't just a family drama, this was a public execution of his character. Their charming, trustworthy associate was a thief and an adulterer. The final slide was a simple, stark image of the holding company's registration, with Jonas's name clearly listed as the agent. My voiceover delivered the final lines. To the people who broke me, thank you, because now there's nothing left to lose. The screen went black. The lights came up. Chaos erupted. Tyrell stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. He didn't even look at Jonas. He just turned to his partners and said, "We're done here." They walked out without a word. My mother started to cry, not quiet, dignified tears, but ugly, gulping sobs of pure rage. "How could you?" she shrieked at me. "You've ruined everything." Rosalie, her face contorted with fury, marched toward me and slapped me hard across the face. The sting was sharp, but I barely felt it. I just looked at her, my expression unreadable. Jonas stood frozen, his face ashen. He looked from me to the empty chairs of his business partners, the full weight of his public and professional ruin crashing down on him. Evelyn wasn't there, but I knew the story would get back to her. She would finally see that she wasn't his great love. She was just a prop in his game, and now a casualty in mine. I picked up my laptop and my purse and walked toward the door. No one tried to stop me. As I left, I heard the beginning of the screaming match, the sound of a perfectly curated family tearing itself apart. I didn't look back. The funeral of secrets was over. I was the only one who had walked away from the grave. I didn't go home. I didn't even go to Penny's. I drove for an hour with no destination in mind, the slap still stinging on my cheek, until I found myself on a quiet, tree-lined street I hadn't visited in years. I parked in front of Samara's house. She opened the door before I even knocked, as if she were expecting me. She didn't look surprised, just tired. She led me inside, made me a cup of tea, and sat with me in her quiet living room. "Jesse called me," she said softly. "He told me what you did." I just nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. "Your mother did the same thing to me 30 years ago," Samara said, her gaze distant. "My first husband, he wasn't a good man. When I tried to leave him, Lucille told me I was being hysterical, that I was embarrassing the family. She told me to think of my reputation. It was never about my happiness. It was always about her control over the story." We sat in silence for a long time. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was alone in the wreckage. I stayed with her for the next few weeks. My phone buzzed with blocked numbers and venomous texts, which I ignored. The world I had set on fire could burn without me for a little while. The fallout was swift and brutal, filtering back to me in bits and pieces. Tyrell Ramirez and his partners didn't just walk away. They initiated a full financial audit of their joint ventures with Jonas. The discovery of the embezzled trust fund was all the ammunition they needed. His assets were frozen pending a lawsuit. His business, the one he'd built on my family's money, collapsed in less than a week. Rosalie, publicly humiliated, quit her job and moved out of town. A friend told me she'd posted a vague, dramatic message on social media about cutting toxic people out of her life before deactivating her accounts. The irony was almost funny. Lucille, true to form, tried to spin the narrative. She told the rest of the family that I'd had a severe and violent mental breakdown, that the video was a collection of paranoid delusions. But the evidence was too specific, the financial trail too clear. For the first time in her life, she couldn't control the story, and the silence from the rest of the family was its own kind of verdict. When I finally returned to my house, it was empty. Jonas was gone. A legal-looking letter was on the kitchen table. Divorce papers. He'd left me everything, likely on the advice of a lawyer who told him a quiet settlement was his only hope of avoiding further legal trouble from my family. There was no note, no apology. I hadn't expected one. Life settled into a new, quiet rhythm. I saw Penny for dinner every week. I started going to a real therapist. I sold the house and found a small apartment in a different part of the city. I was starting over, not from scratch, but from a foundation of hard-won truth. One afternoon I was having coffee with Penny. "Have you heard from any of them?" she asked gently. "No," I said, stirring my latte. "And I don't think I will." An apology would require them to admit they were wrong, and their whole world is built on the idea that they're always right. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you." "It wasn't a victory," I said, looking out the window. "It was just an ending." Revenge didn't feel warm or triumphant. It felt like cleaning out a wound. It was a painful, necessary, and deeply lonely process. It brought clarity, not joy. But clarity was all I had ever really wanted. They thought I needed their love to be whole, but I just needed to stop loving the wrong people. That night I thought about the chain of events, the intricate web of lies that had almost suffocated me. I had been a victim of their choices, but my response was my own. I had chosen to become the consequence. I had picked up the match they'd been using to burn me and lit a fire of my own. Maybe karma wasn't fate. Maybe I was her. The version of me that was willing to set the world on fire just to light my own way.